Cool laptop. All right, guys, it's about 11 o'clock, so I'm going to get on and start this, get it over and done with. All right. So hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to my talk on Perl Glue 3, Perl as mobile glue. And if you haven't done already, you might want to go, and you've got an iPhone, you might want to go onto the App Store and do a search for Perl Glue. You can download the little demo app I prepared for this session. I apologize for it in advance, but you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay, guys, I want to tell you a story. It'll be familiar to most of you. But about 12 months ago, my boss came to me and informed me that we just acquired a company. And basically, we were buying them for their mobile app on the iPhone and the Android. It was called Ski Report. I'm in a skiing industry. I work for Vail Resorts. We're interested in promoting the industry generally and overall. Okay, so I was informed that we wanted to make some changes. Now, some were really small, just like changing the images and branding it. Others were bigger, like changing the ad provider and adding new functionality like trail maps. You know, we'd like you to go up on the mountain and be able to use our apps to find your way around it. Okay, so I met with the original developer and got my hands on the source code. Initially, what surprised me was that there were two parts of the source code. There was the code for the device in Java and Objective-C, which was obviously iPhone and Android, but also there was PHP hanging around in the repository. And this surprised me at first. I mean, what's a server got to do with an iPhone app, right? All the code should be in the same place. But as I looked at the functionality app, this became clear. I mean, there was a lot of interaction between the phone and the server. The server was giving the phone weather information and snow information, but also it was the other way around too. So you could actually post comments about a resort or join up with your friends, and this was all going back to our servers and being stored on it. Okay, so this made sense. I checked out and hosted the PHP, cranked up Xcode and Eclipse, made some minor changes. Everything was looking sweet. I got through an acquisition without losing my hair and too much sleep. However, it wasn't too long before our editor came along and noticed that the data on the mobile phone was actually different to the data on our site, which is on thesnow.com. But this was easier to explain because they use different databases, right? The database is on the mobile phone, had the resorts there, and there was a database on our site, and the two didn't match up. So I'd explained the problem to my editor, but he wasn't happy with this. And I'd spent some time pushing Jira tickets around and noticing that rounding corners didn't work in IE 4 and 5, so that was vastly more important than solving this PHP problem, right? But none of this made my editor happy, and eventually he teamed up with my boss and forced me to do something about it. Now, I wasn't looking forward to this. I hate PHP. It's like Perl's ugly fat sister. So I decided the best thing to do in order to preserve my sanity was to port this entire system over to Perl. So now it got interesting. So this talk is about my password. So this talk, there's a ski report app. So this talk is not about developing apps. Sorry about that. You've still got time if you can leave if you want to. You're not going to get Perl onto a mobile phone unless you jailbreak it. And that's not the people that I'm looking to deploy apps to. However, some of what I'm going to cover today is going to be applicable to you however you're going to deploy your app. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how do you create an app? What do you do? How do you start this process? Well, for me, creating any bit of software is like building a house and not just putting up shells. So I start with the basic steps of development. And obviously, that's your waterfall model. It's research. You do your research. You do a bit of design, which I'm going to go over a little bit. And then you implement the thing. And then you send it to the users, and they test it for you. Now, what I laid out there doesn't sound very agile. And we're all into agile methodologies and scrums. So what I like to do is add one more step. Now, one critical thing here to bear in mind is if you release buggy software, buggy apps, you're going to lose your users straight away. You'll notice when you download this app and have a look, I'm going to lose you straight away. You're not very likely to come back. I mean, I've given you a shoddy product and you don't want to use it and you won't be updating anymore. The other thing to think about is that ratings on the iPhone is king. Oh, sorry, the iPhone and the Android. Basically, research has shown that app users behave more like shoppers than they do traditional internet users. It's not a web page. You've decided to download this to your phone. And they're going to base their purchasing decisions around the user rating, those little stars that you see in the store, and also, unfortunately, your marketing. So you're going to have good store text. It's going to have to be clear. It's going to have to be thought out. There's a little bit of SEO potential going on there, so you need to make sure it's searchable. Think about keywords and localization and all this good stuff. Now, this is probably because of the format of the deployment mechanism. I mean, it's in a store. It's in an app store, so people are behaving like shoppers. Right, let's have a look at your revenue model and the relationship you have to the users. This is a bit of marketing 101 for people who don't care about marketing, but it's very simple. So your free app has no ads. You're probably doing it for research, education, or just fun. There is no revenue generated from this model. You may choose this route because you're learning how to develop apps, which is, great. And the ins and outs of the App Store, which can be a nightmare in itself, certificates and such. You're trying to generate a following. It'll get your name out there. It'll get your brand out there. Reputation is a valuable thing. It may even be worth launching a few apps just to get so people can notice you. I would put this as you're just friends. I mean, if you meet a user, they may buy you a pint. Another model very similar to this is it's free apps with a website backing. Now, your revenue model is generated by your website, and your app is really just a front for that website. Probably renders the exact same data and the same views. And this is great because you can leverage your same user base as the website, and they're going to be far more likely to use your ads. So, your strategy there is that you are friends with your users, nothing too serious. There might be a little bit of light petting going on there. Free app with ads. You're in a relationship with your users. You're both going to get very hurt if they stop to use your device. I mean, your revenue comes from the ads, so you need people to look at it. Okay, so the Band 1 paid app, which is 99 cents, you've got engaged. You must start on your you must start your relationship on the best footing. You don't want to upset your users. You owe them some measure of support. I mean, they've given you $1, right? So you owe them something. Band greater than 1, now this is greater than 99 cents. You've all seen $10 apps or even $30 apps. Now this is getting very serious. So you've just got married. They've shown a level of commitment to you, and you have to respect that and work hard to keep them, because you're going to be in trouble. If you want to charge $10 for an app and your app is crap, then you're not going to make very much money, probably $10. Right. My demographic with this little app that I made is you guys. Now, I wanted to build an app basically so I can demonstrate the whole process, but I may as well try to make it a little bit useful. So let's do something that might help with Yapsy. Let's build a schedule app. Now, what is a schedule app? What does it do? What are our features? So let's show a schedule of talks, show some talk information. Let's let the users create a list of talks they want to go to. Let's let users actually comment and talk, so there's a bit of feedback there, and let users rate talks, so that's the second bit of feedback. Now, diagramming your use cases really helps you to tie down the user interaction. I tend to slavishly go through this process every time I write even a little bit of a hack. So what I'm going to do, this is a general use case diagram. You can see the interactions that I just described before on this page. Now, I'm just putting this up just to show you how pretty diagrams can be, and that you should all be drawing pretty diagrams. It makes it look as though you do a lot of work, and that's great. Now we've seen the use cases nailed down, we can start to develop an object model. This helps us to work out which objects we're going to have, but also helps us to model our data in a way. Now you should have all seen UML diagrams or a variant of this. If you haven't, there are plenty of books out there that are going to help you work it out. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, so my UML probably isn't anything like real UML. I tend to blend the different methodologies that I've used into one useful one that's useful to me, and that's okay because I'm not sitting in an exam. This is just for me and my colleagues to work out what the hell I'm thinking about. Next thing I go through is I tend to try and do some mock-ups. Now these are some various screens that I thought about implementing whilst I was thinking about this app. And you know, you have a list of talks and a date thing and maybe a page with some talk information. Now this is great because when you develop an app, it's a lot different from developing a HTML page where you have a lot more freedom with CSS and HTML elements. Actually, when you build an app, you have a very limited range of objects you can put there. You have standard list objects, you have a button tray or whatever they want to call it, a date object, which, that's fantastic for me because I'm rubbish at CSS. So it avoids all that horrible pixel munging stuff that we have to do with HTML. Okay. So developing your client, this is the device, the app that's going to go to the device, kind of comes down to two good choices for me. Now you have Phonegap, which is basically you deploy HTML to your phone, and it's cross-platform. It works pretty much on every mobile device, Android, iPhone, BlackBerry, lots of obsolete crap. Cross-platform, HTML5, so you probably already know HTML. Access to all the device functionality, which is great because you can get you can make it send alerts, you can work the compass, you can work the camera, the microphone. It'll basically do all of that. It's pretty marvelous stuff. The other choice is obviously to write it native. Now the app's going to be faster, it's going to be a better user experience, as you will find out when you look at the app that I wrote, that if I wrote it natively it would be a lot better user experience, and it's going to be stabler. You're not going to have so many problems. But obviously the drawback from that, it's going to be more expensive to develop, and you're going to have to develop one for every single platform. So I decided to develop it in Phonegap because I'm not interested in making money out of this thing. It's just a demo, and I'm not really interested in creating a following, which I said, would you want this guy following you? No, thank you. Okay, so, however, having seen the final result, I kind of wish I wrote this app natively. So let's talk about the server. So we're going to talk to the client via JSON. You can use XML, or you can even invent your own protocol, but JSON works nicely with Phonegap and native platforms, so it's a good choice for all-around compatibility. Now for framework, you can pretty much do the back end in anything you like. Anything that'll spit out JSON in our case. So that's Mason, Mojilicious, CGIs, ModPerl, anything you like. There are a lot of good tracks going on about service-based architecture and, a lot for me to think about and a lot for me to try out. But regardless of your framework, you need to make it fast and reliable. Remember, you shouldn't tie your server implementation to your client. We may start our project with Phonegap, but later go on to write it natively. So if you have to use web views or web pages, then make sure you retrieve their data via service calls. I mean, that might be a simple AJAX call, that's fine. This way, when we want to migrate to something else later, it's all there and it's all easy. Right, I'm going to go the very bare bones ModPerl approach. I'm going to develop my classes using MooseXDeclare because I think it's super pretty and great for prototyping. I think it's a great way to educate people on how pretty Perl can be. But if I was serious about this app, then I'd probably migrate it to mouse. Right, and here's some code. I don't know if you can see it very well. It's all blurry. But this is one of the things I love about MooseXDeclare is the class declaration. I don't have to worry about declaring self or any of my arguments. I've got strict prototyping in there. It's fantastic. You really seriously suggest you check out MooseXDeclare. It'll make your Perl look like a proper programming language. I'm going to get lynched. But the drawback is it's not quick. There's a significant payback to MooseXDeclare when you load up the code. I mean, we're using ModPerl, so we don't have to worry about that initial load too much. But a colleague did demonstrate to me the other day that his implementation of my classes was 400 times faster. So Here's one of the mod Perl handlers. Now, it's not appropriate to use musex declare for a mod Perl handler. I've done it, and people criticize that a lot. But this is standard package mod Perl handler. Basically, all we're doing here is we're going to use the URL structure, which I'll show you in a minute, to work out what the ID of a story is, for example, and what action we want to perform. And we're just grabbing them from the URL, and then we have this big case block, which just points it towards what I call a service in this case, and that will do all our functionality. Now, it may not look clear what's going on here, but basically, Apache is calling our mod Perl handler. Based on the rules laid out in the config file, which I'll show you in a minute, the handler calls something I've called a schedule service, service : schedule, which checks and converts incoming parameters, and in turn will call the object model, produce some JSON output. So you can see some of that there. It's not great, but that's what's going on. Okay, so designing a URL schema. At some point, you're going to have to design the interface between your client and your Apache server. These are basically just URLs. I mean, think like the Twitter API. And you're going to have to come up with some kind of schema and document it. Now, what I've gone for is I've gone for class, ID, and then action. So class is something like a talk or a schedule, and ID would be the talk ID, and then the action is obviously, standard delete, add, put, whatever. So here's an example of the horrible example of the Apache config file, which shows you how I'm doing shows you basically how I'm routing these requests. So there's my class, it's a talks, and there's my ID. It's going to be in the range of, well, it's going to be a number and multiple numbers. And in this case, we're going to allow people to post comments. Now, you're going to have to come up with your own schema. I don't know any hard and fast rules about this. I don't really know any best practices. So you're on your own, mate. Make your own up. Okay, collecting device IDs. You're going to have to identify each user, and you have several options. You could use the built-in device ID, or you could use a third-party framework like Facebook or Twitter. In our case, I don't really care who you are. I don't want to know your name. So I'm only interested in identifying your mobile phone. So I can save schedules under a unique key. Each device has its own device key, but Apple has currently banned apps directly retrieving that device ID. There are several ways around this. The one I prefer is OpenUDID. Now, I'm going to send unique IDs with every callback to the server. Now, one of the features of our app is that we can send you remote alerts to your device, both in iOS and Android. They both do this in a very similar way. Basically, you need to tell the provider you want permission to send an alert to the device. They will give you a token which you need to store for later use. Once you have the token, you can send a little HTTP request, including the token and your alert, to the provider, Apple or Google's gateway in this case. For this project, I've included two classes that will do this for you. Both use CURL, curl, because they are more or less ported from the PHP example. Oh, and now it goes crazy. Okay. So I think that shows it there. Basically, you collect the token, you store the token, and later on you grab the token and send it along with your HTTP request. And this is what we came up with. In fact, I can do a little quick demo of me sending, if I have time, alerts, which is not going to mean anything because you won't be able to see it, but let's give it a go anyway. Let's check that we have some bandwidth. No, we don't. You might have to trust me that it'll send alerts. Okay, and this is a really simple script. I mean, that's literally the script to send alerts. It's just give me my object, stuff in the token and the message, just point it to the certificate files, which is an interesting talk all in its own, and then you can send alerts. So let's do that. Let's go up here, and there is my little script with my token. Please don't copy it down. I don't want your alerts. And there we go. And in a second, there, it sent me an alert. You won't be able to see it, but you can trust me, it sent me an alert. Okay. And this is the pages we have for our little app. It's all up on the iStore. For some reason, they approved it. So if you want to get a hold of the code and you can look at my rubbish and send nasty messages to me, then that's my GitHub page, and that's we'll have Perl glue under it, and this talk condensed in a wiki format so you can try and work out what the hell I was talking about. All the diagrams are done with this Lucene chart bit of software. Check that out. That's awesome. And if any of you go skiing, have you seen on the snow? I've seen our little ski report app. No. Oh, you should definitely be using that. Anyway, that's our website. We do snowing and stuff. So let me finish off my little story. So what happened with the ski report app? Well, I ported the PHP over to Perl. I made extensive use of MooseX declare. I ended up learning a lot of Objective-C and improving my Java. Had a lot of fun in the process. The new framework is still going. We have full down redundancy, a huge performance gain, managed to get trail map functionality out there, and my boss and editor are really happy. We have a huge number of features for this next ski season. We're going to change the weather provider. We're going to include even more resorts from Europe. Now, I may port the server code over to Moose and use Modulicious or something else, but one thing won't change. Use Perl for epic success. Thank you.